The marker squeaked as it crossed my name out. Not slowly, not thoughtfully, not with any trace of hesitation or regret. Just one clean, casual line through my name, like erasing a mistake on a shopping list. Director Wallace didn't even look at me when he did it. His eyes stayed fixed on the whiteboard as he turned back to the room, picked up the marker again, and wrote another name underneath in bold black letters. "Congratulations, Tyler," he announced to the conference room. "This decision reflects true leadership readiness." My stomach dropped so fast, I thought I might actually throw up right there in front of 12 colleagues. My hands gripped the edge of the table hard enough that my knuckles went white. I forced myself to breathe slowly through my nose, counting silently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, trying to keep my face neutral. The promotion I'd worked toward for 4 years. The position I'd earned through countless late nights and sacrificed weekends. The role everyone knew I deserved. Given to someone else with a single marker stroke. Tyler sat 3 chairs away from me. I could see him trying not to smile too widely, attempting to look humble and surprised, but his eyes betrayed his satisfaction. Director Wallace smiled at him warmly, and I understood everything in that moment. No one gasped. No one questioned it. No one looked confused or surprised or even mildly concerned. A few people around the table nodded slowly, like this announcement made perfect sense. Like it was the logical conclusion everyone had anticipated. Someone in the back started clapping politely, and others joined in with that mechanical applause that fills uncomfortable corporate moments. That's when the anger hit me, sharp and sudden and completely overwhelming. Because everyone in that conference room knew the numbers displayed on the board behind Director Wallace were mine. Every quarterly target exceeded. Every revenue goal surpassed. Every efficiency metric improved. My work, my results, my accomplishments. The data told a clear story, and everyone could read it. And they all sat there and watched him erase me anyway. Tyler's numbers were mediocre at best. He'd missed 2 quarterly targets this year alone. His client retention rate was 15% below the department average. His project completions consistently ran over budget and past deadline. None of that mattered. The person with the relationship got the promotion. The person with the results got a line through her name. I sat perfectly still, my face carefully blank, while rage built behind my ribs like pressure in a sealed container. The name he wrote wasn't random. It wasn't some surprising dark horse candidate who'd impressed everyone quietly. It wasn't an external hire bringing fresh perspective. It belonged to his friend. His personal friend from outside work. The one he'd brought into the company exactly 6 months ago with a glowing personal recommendation. The one he mentored privately over lunches I was never invited to. The one he played golf with every Sunday morning. The one who never hit a single target without my direct intervention and help. Tyler had been at this company for half a year. 6 months of underperformance, propped up by my expertise. I'd been here for 4 years, 48 months of proving myself over and over again. And sitting in that conference room, watching Director Wallace beam at Tyler like a proud parent, I understood something with perfect clarity. This promotion had never been up for debate. The interviews were theater. The performance reviews were paperwork exercises. The entire selection process was predetermined. They decided weeks ago, maybe months ago, and everything since then had been carefully orchestrated theater to create the appearance of fairness. The game was rigged from the beginning, and I'd never had a chance. My name is Cassandra Brooks. Before that moment in the conference room, before watching my name get casually erased like it meant nothing, I genuinely believed hard work still meant something. I believed that excellence would be recognized, that results would speak for themselves. That if you consistently exceeded expectations and delivered outstanding performance, you'd be rewarded accordingly. I believed in meritocracy, even though I'd seen evidence against it countless times. I believed the system was fundamentally fair, even if it wasn't perfect. I believed doing the right thing mattered more than knowing the right people. Sitting there with my name crossed out on the whiteboard, listening to Director Wallace congratulate his friend, I realized how incredibly naive I'd been about everything. I was wrong about all of it, but I wouldn't stay wrong for long. Because while Director Wallace was shaking Tyler's hand, while everyone else was offering congratulations and polite applause, my brain was already shifting gears. I wasn't thinking about fairness anymore. I wasn't dwelling on what I deserved. I was thinking about documentation, about policies and procedures that had clearly been violated, about evidence and proof. I was thinking about exactly how they'd made their mistake, and how I was going to make absolutely certain they paid for it. I walked back to my desk like my legs belonged to someone else. My body moved automatically down the hallway, past the coffee station, around the corner to my workspace in the operations section. But my mind felt completely disconnected, floating somewhere above it all, watching myself move like an observer rather than a participant. People smiled at me as I passed. Small, tight smiles. Sympathetic expressions they didn't have the courage or honesty to voice out loud. Everyone knew I'd been passed over. Everyone knew it was wrong. Everyone could see the injustice. Nobody was going to say anything about it. The promoted friend, Tyler, walked past my desk 15 minutes later, heading toward his new office. He kept his eyes straight ahead, deliberately avoiding eye contact. His face was flushed, whether from excitement or shame I couldn't tell and didn't care. I smiled at him anyway, a small, professional smile that required every ounce of self-control I possessed. That smile cost me more than the promotion did. It cost me my pride, my dignity, my sense of justice in the world. But I gave it anyway, because I needed him to think I was fine with this. I needed everyone to believe I'd accepted the decision gracefully. I needed them comfortable and unsuspecting. My director called me in later that afternoon. The meeting invitation appeared in my inbox at 3 o'clock. Quick discussion, 3:30 p.m. I accepted it without comment and showed up exactly on time. Director Wallace sat behind his massive mahogany desk, the one that probably cost more than 3 months of my salary. He folded his hands together on the polished surface and looked at me with an expression that was clearly meant to convey concern, but just looked condescending. "Cassandra, I wanted to talk about this morning's announcement," he said in that careful, measured tone managers use when delivering rehearsed bad news. I sat down in the chair across from him and waited, keeping my face neutral and attentive. "This wasn't an easy call," he continued, shaking his head with practiced regret. "The decision came down to very fine distinctions between several excellent candidates." I nodded once but said nothing. Let him fill the silence with his justifications. "I want you to know that you're incredibly valuable where you are," he said, leaning forward slightly for emphasis. "Your current role is absolutely critical to this team's success. We rely on you." That sentence landed like a physical blow. That sentence told me everything I needed to know about my future here. Valuable meant useful. Useful meant replaceable. Replaceable meant convenient. Convenient meant never promoted. The logic was so transparent it was almost insulting. I was too good at my current job to move up. Too reliable at fixing everyone else's problems. Too willing to work late and sacrifice weekends. Too competent at making other people look successful. Promoting me would create a gap they didn't want to fill, keeping me exactly where I was kept their operations running smoothly. I was more valuable to them as a perpetual problem solver than as a leader. Director Wallace assumed I'd accept this explanation quietly, that I'd nod and thank him for his time and go back to my desk and keep being useful, that I'd continue fixing crises and covering for incompetence and making everyone above me look good. He assumed I would take this like I'd taken everything else over 4 years. The late-night emergencies, the weekend projects, the credit stolen for my ideas, the watching less qualified people get promoted around me. He assumed I'd stay in my lane. So I nodded. I thanked him for his time and his feedback. I stood up, walked out of his office with my head high, and he had absolutely no idea what I was actually thinking. For years earlier, I joined this company as a fixer. That wasn't my official title, of course. The business card said Operations Specialist. But everyone knew what I actually did. I was the person they called when projects derailed, when clients threatened to leave, when deadlines got missed and budgets exploded and someone needed to clean up the mess without making anyone look bad. Late nights became my normal. Weekend work became expected. Crisis management became my specialty. I made everyone above me look competent and organized and in control. The executives loved me because I solved their problems invisibly. My managers loved me because my success made them look like effective leaders. My colleagues loved me because I helped them meet their targets without asking for credit. Everyone benefited from my competence and dedication. I thought I was building a reputation, earning trust, creating opportunities for advancement. I didn't realize I was actually building a ceiling over my own head. Every problem I solved made me more valuable in my current position. Every crisis I managed made them more dependent on keeping me exactly where I was. I thought I was building a ladder to climb upward. I was actually building a cage to keep me contained. 3 days after the promotion announcement, the new leader asked me for a favor. Tyler appeared at my desk with a friendly smile and a casual request that immediately raised red flags. "Hey, Cassandra, I need you to approve a vendor change for the Morrison account," he said, holding a single form. "Can you sign off on this today?" I looked at the document carefully. It was a request to switch our primary supplier without going through standard procurement protocols. No cost comparison analysis. No quality assessment. No competitive bidding documentation. Just a direct switch to a vendor I'd never heard of. "This bypasses the standard approval process," I said neutrally, looking up at him. He waved his hand dismissively. "It's already been cleared verbally by Director Wallace. I just need your signature to complete the paperwork trail." The request violated at least 3 company policies I could think of immediately. "Can you send this to me by email?" I asked, keeping my tone professional. "I'll need to review the supporting documentation before I can approve it." Tyler hesitated, his friendly expression flickering. "Is that really necessary? It's already approved." "Company policy requires email documentation for all vendor changes over $5,000, I said calmly. "Just forward me the approval chain and I'll process it immediately." He looked annoyed but nodded. "Fine, I'll send it over." He did send it, and I saved every word. Another request followed 2 days later, then another the following week. Each one pushed slightly beyond the boundaries of established procedure. Each one claimed to have verbal approval from someone higher up. Each one needed my signature to make it official and binding. Each request was justified by urgency, by special circumstances, by the competitive need to move quickly. Each one violated at least one company policy, and each one was meticulously documented in my private email folder. Tyler wanted me to approve budget overruns without proper justification, to authorize payments before contracts were fully executed, to bypass review processes that existed specifically to prevent fraud and waste. He assumed I would be cooperative, that I would be a team player, that I would help the new leader succeed in his role. He assumed I wouldn't question his authority or push back on his requests. He was completely wrong. I questioned everything politely. I documented everything carefully. I created a detailed paper trail for every single violation. Not dramatically, not obviously, not in any way that would alert him to what I was doing. I simply followed the rules exactly as they were written, and I kept perfect records of every single time he asked me not to. I stopped feeling hurt after about 2 weeks. The emotional pain of being passed over, the anger, the betrayal, the profound sense of injustice. All of that faded surprisingly quickly once I changed my perspective. It was replaced by something sharper, colder, more focused. I started feeling alert instead of wounded. methodical instead of angry. I began seeing patterns I'd missed before, or perhaps had chosen not to see. Favoritism isn't loud and dramatic. It's not obvious corruption or blatant misconduct. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's repetitive. It's the same person receiving opportunities that others don't get. The same mistakes being overlooked for certain individuals while being punished in others. The same rules being bent for friends while being rigidly enforced on everyone else. And repetition creates evidence. Patterns create proof. Every time Tyler asked me to bypass a procedure that created evidence. Every time Director Wallace approved something for Tyler that he denied for others, that created documentation. Every time they cut corners and assumed nobody would notice or care, they generated records. I noticed everything now. I tracked everything systematically. I saved everything in multiple secure locations. And slowly, methodically, I built a comprehensive file that told a very clear story about what was actually happening in this department. They grew comfortable with their arrangement. That was their critical mistake, the overconfidence that comes from getting away with something repeatedly. Tyler started delegating work he didn't understand to people who did. Mainly me. He'd take full credit in meetings for strategies I'd developed. He'd present results I'd achieved as evidence of his effective leadership. Director Wallace started skipping oversight meetings, trusting Tyler to handle responsibilities he clearly wasn't equipped to manage. They both trusted the organizational structure to protect them. They trusted their friendship. They trusted that nobody would seriously question their decisions or challenge their authority. Most importantly, they trusted me. They trusted me to keep fixing Tyler's mistakes, to keep covering for his incompetence, to keep making them both look good while staying invisible myself. And I did exactly that. I absolutely did. I fixed every problem that arose. I covered every gap in Tyler's knowledge. I made sure projects stayed on track and clients stayed satisfied. But now I documented everything with meticulous care. Every time Tyler made a decision that violated established policy, every time Director Wallace gave him preferential treatment, every time they circumvented rules that applied to everyone else, I kept perfect, detailed records. I built my case systematically, and I waited patiently. One night, working late as usual, my director forwarded me an internal email chain by accident. It happened at 9:17 p.m. on a Thursday. I was finishing a quarterly analysis when my inbox notification pinged. The subject line read, Leadership Transition, Confidential. I opened it automatically before my brain fully processed what I was reading. It was an email thread between Director Wallace and two executives from corporate headquarters. The discussion dated from 7 weeks earlier, for weeks before the promotion interviews had even been officially scheduled. The emails discussed the promotion decision as if it had already been finalized and decided. One line in particular stood out, written by Director Wallace himself in response to a question about my qualifications. Cassandra is exceptionally competent, but she's more valuable in operations. As long as she stays in her lane, this transition should work perfectly. Tyler needs the visibility, and she needs the stability. Stays in her lane. I stared at that phrase on my screen for a long time, reading it over and over until the words stopped making sense and became just abstract symbols. Then I saved the entire email chain to 3 different locations, my personal cloud drive, an encrypted USB drive, and a printed hard copy that I took home that night. This wasn't just evidence anymore. This was documented proof of predetermined decisions and bias. I created a folder on my personal laptop that night, not with a dramatic name, not labeled with anger or emotion or accusations, just a simple professional label, Documentation Promotion Process. Inside, I organized everything chronologically and by category, dates of policy violations with supporting evidence, copies of procurement procedures Tyler had bypassed, email requests for approvals that circumvented standard processes, Screenshots of budget overruns that weren't properly justified or documented. The accidentally forwarded email about the predetermined promotion decision. Performance reviews clearly showing my results compared to Tyler's mediocre outcomes. Meeting notes where Tyler had claimed credit for my work, with timestamps proving I'd developed the strategies. Records of the golf outings and private lunches that established the personal relationship between Director Wallace and Tyler. Everything was dated precisely. Everything was sourced with verification. Everything was cross-referenced and organized. I didn't add emotional commentary. I didn't write angry accusations or personal grievances. I simply arranged the facts in chronological order, allowing the pattern to speak for itself. Truth doesn't need emotion to be lethal. Truth just needs to be organized clearly and presented systematically. I worked on that folder for 4 hours, ensuring everything was properly labeled, categorized, and backed up in multiple secure locations. When I finally closed my laptop, I felt calmer than I had in weeks. 2 weeks later, HR announced a routine internal audit. The email came from corporate headquarters on a Monday morning. One of those dry, bureaucratic messages that most people barely glanced at before deleting or filing away. Annual compliance review, all departments, begins April 3rd. Standard procedure that happened every year. Finance, operations, procurement, human resources. Everything would be reviewed by external auditors to ensure compliance with corporate policies and applicable regulations. No one panicked publicly about it, but I watched the energy in the office shift immediately and noticeably. Director Wallace sent a department-wide email within 30 minutes. Please ensure all documentation is current and readily accessible for the audit team. Direct any questions to me. Tyler stopped by my desk that afternoon, trying to appear casual but clearly anxious. This audit is just routine, right? He asked, leaning against my cubicle wall with forced nonchalance. Happens every year. I confirmed neutrally, not looking up from my work. Do they actually review everything in detail? Or is it more of a spot check kind of situation? They're quite thorough, I said calmly, meeting his eyes, especially with procurement processes and budget approvals. His face went visibly pale. The promoted friend was beginning to realize his shortcuts might have consequences. I returned to my work, expression perfectly neutral. Inside, I was counting down the days. The cracks started showing within 48 hours. Tyler began asking unusual questions in team meetings. Questions about what documentation gets included in audit reports. Questions about how thoroughly auditors review email communications. Questions about whether verbal approvals from directors counted as official authorization. Director Wallace started suddenly micromanaging approval processes he'd completely ignored for months, reviewing every vendor change, scrutinizing every budget modification, asking detailed questions about procedures he'd previously dismissed as unnecessary bureaucracy. They could both feel something coming toward them. They could sense danger approaching like animals sensing an incoming storm. They just didn't know exactly where it was coming from. And they definitely didn't suspect me. I was Cassandra after all. Reliable Cassandra. Helpful Cassandra. The one who stayed in her lane and kept everything running smoothly without complaint. The one who would never cause problems or make waves. Tyler pulled me aside on Thursday afternoon, his voice low and urgent, almost desperate. Have you talked to anyone about our approval processes? He asked directly, dropping all pretense of casual conversation. The auditors haven't contacted me yet, I said truthfully. The audit didn't officially begin until next week. But if they do contact you, you'll just explain that everything is normal, right? That we follow standard procedures. I looked at him steadily, my expression giving nothing away. I'll answer their questions honestly and accurately. His jaw tightened with barely concealed anxiety. That night, I pulled up the company's whistleblower protection policy on my personal laptop. I'd read it before years ago, the way you read policies you never actually expect to need or use. Now I read every single word with careful attention. protected reporting mechanisms for policy violations, anonymous submission options through secure third-party channels, explicit legal protections against retaliation of any kind, independent investigation procedures separate from department management. The policy was remarkably clear and comprehensive. Employees were not only permitted but actively encouraged to report violations of company policy, particularly those involving conflicts of interest, favoritism in hiring or promotion, or misuse of company resources. Reports could be submitted anonymously through a dedicated hotline or through a secure, encrypted online portal. All reports would be investigated by an independent compliance team with no connection to the departments involved. Retaliation against whistleblowers was explicitly prohibited and would result in immediate termination. No drama required. No confrontations necessary. No public accusations. Just facts submitted through official channels. Just consequences delivered through proper procedures. I read the submission guidelines 3 times carefully, making sure I understood exactly what documentation would be most useful and persuasive. Then I looked at my meticulously organized folder, at the months of evidence I'd carefully collected. Everything was ready. I just needed to decide exactly when to submit it. The audit began in 6 days. Perfect timing. I submitted the documentation on Sunday night. Not from the office. Not from my work computer where activity could be monitored or traced. From my personal laptop, through the secure anonymous portal that the whistleblower protection policy explicitly provided and guaranteed. I didn't write a dramatic narrative or emotional appeal. I didn't make accusations or demands for justice. I simply uploaded my organized folder with a brief, factual cover statement. The attached documentation demonstrates a pattern of policy violations and potential conflicts of interest related to the recent senior operations manager promotion. All materials are sourced from official company communications and verified records. Then I attached everything systematically. The emails showing predetermined promotion decisions made weeks before official interviews. The approval requests that deliberately bypassed procurement policies. The budget overruns without proper justification or documentation. The performance comparisons clearly showing the discrepancy. The timeline establishing the personal relationship between Director Wallace and Tyler. Facts arranged in precise chronological order. No emotional commentary. No personal grievances. Just documented evidence. I reviewed everything twice to ensure I hadn't missed anything important or made any errors. Then I clicked Submit. The system immediately confirmed receipt. Your confidential report has been received and assigned reference number WB 4721. You will receive updates at the secure email address provided. I closed my laptop quietly. It was done now. Whatever happened next was completely out of my hands. The silence started on Tuesday morning. Not complete silence. People still talked, still worked, still moved through their normal daily routines. But something fundamental had shifted in the atmosphere. Meetings started getting canceled without clear explanation. Director Wallace's calendar, which was usually visible to the entire team, suddenly became private and hidden. Tyler's weekly team coordination meeting was postponed indefinitely with no new date scheduled. People whispered in small groups in the break room, near the coffee machine, in the hallways between meetings. Nobody knew exactly what was happening, but everyone could feel the tension building steadily. Wednesday afternoon, I noticed 2 people I didn't recognize being escorted to Director Wallace's office by someone from corporate HR. They wore visitor badges and carried professional leather portfolios. They stayed behind closed doors for over 2 hours. The regular audit team wasn't supposed to arrive until next Monday, but these clearly weren't the regular auditors. These were investigators conducting a different kind of review. Tyler stopped making his usual jokes in team communication channels, stopped appearing at my desk with casual requests and friendly conversation, stopped pretending everything was normal and fine. I kept working steadily, managing my projects, responding to emails, meeting all my deadlines. On the surface, nothing had changed for me at all, but I could feel the entire department holding its breath, collectively, waiting for something nobody could quite name or identify. One morning, I arrived at the office to find Tyler's desk completely empty. Not messy or disorganized like someone had left in a hurry. Empty. His computer monitor was gone. His personal photographs had been removed from the cubicle walls. His coffee mug, his desk calendar, his motivational posters, everything had vanished. Just an empty workspace with a bare desk surface and a disconnected phone sitting uselessly. No goodbye email had been sent to the team. No announcement had been made through official channels. Just sudden, complete absence where a person used to exist. I sat down at my own desk and opened my laptop, my heart beating noticeably faster, but my face carefully neutral and composed. Someone from the finance department walked past and paused at my cubicle entrance. "Did you hear about Tyler?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. "No," I said quietly, keeping my tone merely curious. "What happened?" "Administrative leave. That's what people are saying. HR escorted him out yesterday evening after everyone else had left for the day." Administrative leave meant investigation. It meant serious policy concerns. It meant potential termination. It meant the evidence was working. "Do you know why?" I asked, maintaining appropriate concern without seeming too interested. She shook her head quickly. "Nobody knows details, but it must be serious." I nodded sympathetically and returned to my work. Inside, I felt satisfaction building steadily. The system was responding to the truth. 2 days later, Director Wallace didn't show up for work. His office remained dark all morning. The door stayed locked. His nameplate was still there, but the office was clearly empty. His name disappeared from the internal company directory by early afternoon. No announcement was made. No explanation was provided. No goodbye email was sent to the team he'd managed for 6 years. Just silence and absence where authority used to exist. People started panicking quietly among themselves. If the director was gone, what did that mean for the department's future? Who would be in charge now? What was actually happening? I received an email at 2:15 p.m. from someone in HR I'd never met or corresponded with before. "Ms. Brooks, please attend a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. in Conference Room C. This concerns organizational changes in your department. Please confirm receipt." I accepted the meeting invitation without adding any comments or questions. That night, I couldn't sleep properly. I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, running through countless possibilities and scenarios. Were they going to terminate me too? Had they somehow discovered I was the whistleblower despite the anonymous submission? Or were they going to offer me something? I didn't know which possibility frightened me more. By morning, I'd made my decision about how to handle whatever came next. I'd tell the truth. I'd stand by my documentation. I'd accept whatever consequences followed. I'd done the right thing. HR called me in at exactly 10 o'clock the next morning. 3 people sat around the conference table waiting for me. I recognized one, the HR director I'd met briefly during my initial hiring interview 4 years ago. The other 2 introduced themselves as representatives from corporate compliance and legal departments. "Thank you for coming, Cassandra," the HR director said, her tone professional but noticeably warmer than I'd expected. "We want to discuss recent events in your department." I sat down carefully and waited, my hands folded calmly in my lap, my expression neutral. "I'm sure you've noticed that both Director Wallace and Tyler Harrison are no longer with the company," she continued carefully, choosing words with obvious precision. I nodded once, acknowledging the obvious. "Without going into details that remain legally confidential, I can tell you that both individuals violated multiple serious company policies. The violations were significant enough to warrant immediate contract termination." She paused deliberately, watching my reaction closely. I kept my face professionally attentive and calm. "We want to sincerely thank you for your professionalism and integrity Throughout this difficult situation, she continued, your documentation and consistent adherence to proper procedures helped us identify systematic problems that required immediate correction. So they knew. They definitely knew I was the source. The senior operations manager position is now vacant, she said, sliding a formal folder across the polished table toward me. We would like to offer it to you, effective immediately. I said no, not angrily, not dramatically, not as some grand gesture of moral superiority or revenge, just honestly and calmly and with complete certainty. I genuinely appreciate the offer, I said, meeting the HR director's surprised expression directly, but I need to respectfully decline. The three people around the table looked authentically shocked by my response. May I ask why? The HR director asked carefully, her professional composure momentarily slipping. I've already accepted another position, I explained simply. I submitted my resignation this morning to the interim department head. My last day will be in exactly 2 weeks. This was completely true. I'd accepted an offer from a competitor 3 days ago, a role 1 full level higher than the position they were now offering. Better compensation, better title, better reputation for ethical culture. I'd applied for it 2 months earlier, right after the promotion announcement, when I first truly understood that this company would never value me appropriately. The position you're offering is appreciated, I continued calmly, but it's the same role in the same department where I personally witnessed favoritism override merit, where I had to fight constantly just to get people to follow basic established policies, where I spent 4 years consistently proving myself and still got passed over for someone's friend. I stood up slowly, leaving the unopened folder on the conference table. I'm not interested in staying somewhere I had to become a whistleblower just to be treated fairly and ethically. The room was completely silent. On my last day, I packed my desk alone. It didn't take very long. For years of professional life fit into 2 medium-sized cardboard boxes. Personal photographs of family and friends. A coffee mug my sister gave me. A small desk plant I'd somehow kept alive through everything. Some professional books. A few achievement awards that didn't matter anymore. No one stopped me as I carried the boxes to my car in 2 trips. No one organized a goodbye party in the break room with cake and speeches. No farewell lunch with colleagues. No heartfelt speeches about my contributions and impact. Just a quiet, unremarkable exit for someone who decided she was worth considerably more than what this place could offer. But I didn't feel defeated or diminished. I felt finished, complete. There's a fundamental difference between leaving because you failed and leaving because you won on your own terms. I'd won decisively. They'd lost their contracts, their positions, their professional reputations. And I was walking away with my integrity completely intact, my evidence thoroughly validated, and a significantly better opportunity waiting. Director Wallace and Tyler had believed their personal relationship and positional power would protect them from consequences. They believed their friendship made them untouchable. They believed I would stay quiet, stay useful, stay in my designated lane forever. They were completely wrong about everything. I loaded the final box into my trunk and drove away without looking back even once. They lost their contracts because they believed power protected them from consequences, because they thought being well-connected mattered more than being competent and ethical, because they assumed the system existed primarily to serve and protect them, not to hold them accountable, because they underestimated someone they dismissed and undervalued. I won because I understood something they never considered or comprehended. Workplaces don't actually change when people yell and make dramatic public accusations. Workplaces don't change when employees complain loudly but ineffectively without evidence. Workplaces don't change through confrontation or emotion alone. They change when someone carefully documents the truth with meticulous precision. When someone builds an absolutely unassailable case using facts and verified evidence. When someone uses the system's own established rules and procedures to enforce accountability, they change when someone has the strength and self-respect to walk away rather than accept injustice. I didn't win by being louder or more aggressive than them. I won by being significantly smarter and infinitely more patient, by keeping perfect records of everything, by following every procedure exactly, by building a documented case so comprehensive and solid that the company had no choice except to act. And then, when they finally offered me what I'd legitimately earned all along, I had enough self-respect to refuse it, because I'd learned something critically important. You teach people how to treat you through what you accept, and I was permanently done accepting less than I deserved.